I had been assigned to Camp Faro Line for 9 months, and in 9 months I had learned exactly one useful thing about the human embedded with our medical detachment. He was slow. Slow to answer when spoken to. Slow to defend himself when the junior officers needled him about why a species that could not even regenerate a severed finger had been allowed anywhere near a quorum tent. Slow, most of all, to leave, even when I made it clear he was not wanted. His name was Dane Mercer. He had a gray beard he never bothered to shape, hands scarred along the knuckles from some old life before this one, and a canvas medkit so worn the strap had been resewn twice. He ran our pre-quorum screenings, exposure panels, nothing more, a formality the treaty required before any signer could be certified fit to put a hand to the document. I watched him do it the way you watch a clock you expect to stop. The other liaison officers had their theories about why a human medic had been embedded with us at all instead of one of our own field surgeons. Some said it was a goodwill gesture from the old Peace Council. Before the council itself dissolved into the squabbling factions it had been meant to prevent. Others said the humans had simply been short on places to send him, and Camp Faro Line was as good as any forgotten posting. I had my own theory, which was that he was here because nobody important had thought to ask, and that suited a man like Mercer fine. He never once corrected anyone's guess. He just kept refilling the analyzer's reagent trays and logging numbers nobody outside the tent would ever read. The treaty itself was one signature short of dying. Old Vekari law, older than either client state currently pretending to honor it, required 3 living, blood-confirmed members of a founding line to ratify any ceasefire binding our 2 factions. 2 had been killed in the Coral collapse 11 years before. The third was Regent Kessa Vailtarn, and everyone in that tent, myself included, understood that a quorum of 1 was not a quorum. It was a courtesy. A clock running out with great dignity. Kessa did not act like a woman watching her own ending. She moved through the tent checking rosters, correcting a translator's grammar, asking after a corporal's bad knee. She had bronze-dark skin gone gray with exhaustion at the eyes, black hair cropped close for field duty, and a storm-blue gaze that did not waver even when she signed a temporary extension she knew her own law would not honor twice. I had served under colder regents. I had never served under one who still asked about the corporal's knee. "Mercer," she said, holding out her arm for the cuff without looking at him, "tell me something useless. I am tired of people telling me things that matter." "There's a moth in here," he said. "Got in through the flap seam, keeps landing on the readout light." She almost smiled. It was the first almost smile I had seen on her in 3 weeks. I did not think anything of the screening. None of us did. It was Mercer's hands going through the motions they always went through: cuff, draw, seal, label, slot the sample into the field analyzer that hummed in the corner like an old engine. He did his own panel last, same as every week, because regulation required the screener be screened too. It was the analyzer that stopped me from leaving the tent. It made a sound I had not heard it make before, not the soft chime of a clean result, but a long, flat tone, the kind reserved for results the machine wanted a person to verify by hand. Mercer frowned at it the way he frowned at most things, like a man checking whether a fuse had blown. He cross-referenced the panel against his own log, found nothing wrong with the machine, and ran it again. Same tone. "Founder line concordance flag," he read aloud, in the same voice he'd have used to report a low oxygen tank. "That's a new one, means anything to anybody." It meant a great deal to me, and I said so, because I did not yet understand what it would cost me to be right. "It means the machine is malfunctioning," I told him. "There is no founder concordance marker outside the Regent's own blood. It is not a public marker. It is not in any civilian registry. It cannot return a match on a human." Kessa had gone very still. She crossed the tent without being asked and took the readout from Mercer's hand herself, the way a soldier takes a weapon she does not trust anyone else to check. She read it twice. "Where is your kit from Mercer?" she said. Not a question shaped like one. A question shaped like a hand closing. He looked down at the canvas bag at his hip like he'd forgotten it was attached to him. Family thing. Belonged to my grandfather. He never said much about where he got it, said it came off a rescue ship before I was born. Some kind of salvage post out past the old shipping lanes. He unclasped the worn brass fitting at the strap, turned it over without ceremony, the way you'd show someone a watch. "There's a serial stamped in here somewhere. Never thought twice about it." Kessa took the clasp from his hand and held it to the lamp, and I watched a woman who had not let her face move in 11 years stop, being able to hold it still. "This is a Vale Rescue Vessel registry mark," she said quietly, "pre-Coral. There were 4 ships in that registry. 3 were destroyed in the collapse. The 4th was reported lost with all hands." She looked up at him, and her eyes were wet without spilling, the way still water holds before it moves. It did not lose all hands. Around us, the tent had gone the kind of quiet that has weight to it. The corporal with the bad knee had stopped halfway through pulling his sleeve back down. The translator's stylus had stopped against the slate. Even the analyzer, which had been humming all evening like something alive, seemed to settle into a lower note, as if it too understood it had said something it could not take back. Nobody in that tent spoke. I had spent 9 months believing I understood exactly what kind of nothing this man was. I did not understand anything. "I'm not asking you to be anything," Mercer said, careful, like a man handling something he was afraid he'd drop. "I just ran the panel." "You ran the panel," Kessa repeated, and there was something in her voice I had never heard a Regent use, not command, not grief, something closer to relief learning it was allowed to exist. "Founder Concordance does not skip generations on accident, Mercer. It does not pass to anyone outside the line unless the line chose to put it there. Someone on that ship made a decision a long time before either of us was born. I am not the last confirmed signer in this tent. I have not been for 9 months. I simply did not know to look." She turned to me, because I was the ranking officer of record and someone had to certify what came next, and because I think she wanted a witness who had doubted him to be the one who watched. "Run it formally," she said. "Full genealogical concordance, witnessed, logged under treaty protocol. If it confirms what the field panel says, you will record that the quorum stands at 3, effective this hour." It confirmed. I watched the second machine agree with the first, slower and with more ceremony, and I logged it with my own hand because regulation required the witnessing officer's signature, and because some part of me needed to write it down to believe it. The treaty held that night for the first time in 11 years, on something other than borrowed time. Mercer did not ask for rank, or quarters, or a place at the signing table beyond the one his own panel had earned him by accident. He asked, once the documents were sealed, whether the moth had made it back out through the flap seam, because he didn't like the idea of something getting trapped in a tent full of people who'd almost missed what was right in front of them. Kessa stood beside him while the rest of us filed out to carry word to both client states, and I heard her say the only thing I ever heard her say to him that sounded less like a regent and more like a woman who had stopped expecting to be found. 9 months, she said. You were here 9 months, and I asked you for something useless every week, and you never once told me the truth would have mattered more. Didn't know it yet myself, he said. Wouldn't have changed how I ran the panel either way. She nodded once slowly, the way I imagine a woman nods when a clock she'd made peace with stopping has instead simply kept time all along. I left them there, the lamp still burning over an old brass clasp neither of them had let go of, and I went out to tell 2 factions that the line everyone had quietly buried was, as it turned out, never as alone as the law had let it believe.